There you
Alec,
go.
great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining today and seeing what amounts to the worst flying of my life.
Charles, buddy, I do not judge. I was an instructor in an actual airplane. I've seen much more scary stuff.
I think we found our at least some of our topic for the interview today. I'm fascinated by by your career and what you're doing and what you've done. Can you just walk us through kind of your journey with aviation so far?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, my name is Alec. I'm a captain with Delta Connection based out of Seattle, Washington on the Embraer 175 aircraft. So it's a jet, tons of fun. But as far as the journey goes, I kind of knew I was um, destined to fly since I was probably 3 years old. Growing up just outside of Santa Rosa, California. Um, I got to about and then I did a few like introductory flights with my uncle, who was a pilot for Horizon Airlines at the time, out in Eastern Washington, and really kind of confirmed like, yep, this is for me. And I got
Ah,
pretty big into flight sim for a time in high school, and flying for virtual airlines, that kind of stuff. Went to college at the University of North Dakota out in Grand Forks, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but great for flight training in that the entire state is basically one giant runway. Very, 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 very flat. Um, Basically, over the course of that degree program, earned most of my certificates. Um, Got out of there with actually a degree in drone operations, which I haven't done a whole lot with, although recently I've had some people reaching out saying if I was interested in rejoining that space. But after I graduated college, I picked up my flight instructor's certificate, started to teach out of Renton, Washington, which is actually where they build that airport's been the manufacturing site for airplanes going back to the B-29. They did B-29s, they did 717, 707, 757, 727, and now it's the primary production for the MAX and the 73. So that was a cool experience. I did that for almost 2 years, build up enough time to get what's called your airline transport pilot's license, and or your ATP, and I got hired at my current job, and been here ever since. It's been lots of fun.
that is fantastic. You've sort of been around and with sort of like nurtured your relationship with aviation in all kinds of different ways. You know, from the places you've lived, it seems like you've always kind of had a bent toward aviation. I noticed you mentioned virtual airlines. I that is something I actually dabbled with as part of my flight sim. Early flight sim days too. This was during the America Online days with I don't know what rev of Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it was not advanced. It was certainly not multiplayer, except in the case of basically comparing your logbooks after the fact. But it had a dedicated following. What was your virtual airline experience?
I it started with United Virtual Airlines, which was actually one of the more hardcore airlines out there. They had a website that's still active actually today. They have a website, a board. You go chat amongst others. You get a call sign. You can basically log in and fly actual flights on actual routes.
Oh, very cool.
As far as like procedures, it taught me a lot actually. This was before I started any kind of training, but I got into learning how to read an approach plate. I learned about airline SOPs. All of the At least a lot of these virtual airlines had documents that were very close and oftentimes drew inspiration from their real world counterparts, which
Wow.
was actually very helpful for what I'm doing now. Just all my initial training in general. But I have to say, watching you play DCS and having dabbled in it myself, I think a guy mentioned in the excuse me, in the Twitch chat that Flight Sims had come a long way, and I have to agree that DCS is an absolute beast of a sim. It's pretty incredible.
It is really something, isn't it? When you were doing your virtual airlines, did you end up purchasing like actual physical kit? You had charts and you know the computers and these other things. Was that the depth of your
No,
geekery, or not quite so much?
no, I mean, I was still in high school at that point. I didn't have a job, so I didn't have income still at my parents' house. So I didn't get a chance to go through all of that. I mean, the extent of my geekery was I developed a. Let's see. In my day, on a typical school day, I only had time for typical, like a quick hop from Seattle to Spokane, Seattle to Portland.
Right.
In a United Express Embraer 120, which is a twin low-wing turboprop.
Ah.
So I basically developed a custom checklist, and I laminated it so I could take like a dry erase pen and kind of check stuff off as I went. But I would print out dispatch release packets, print out the route, print out a weather briefing.
Oh wow. Wow, very cool.
Go through as much as I could, and then I would time the flight to depart at the same time as the actual flight. So it'd be like an evening flight, Seattle to Spokane on the 120. I would try to depart at the exact same time as that flight. I would kind of track it as I went, and that sim. I'm not sure if anybody on the stream here is familiar with that, but it's basically a live ATC sort of service where players can act and are trained as air traffic controllers. And so I'd be learning how to make calls on the radio, which proved to be extremely valuable in my actual training. Then I'd get in, I'd do all the checks and everything, and I tried to basically make it as real as possible. But in terms of like hardware, I stuck with the Microsoft Sidewinder Pro that I've had in my room for since 1998. So
oh, respect to the Sidewinder.
That is still one of the best sticks I've ever had.
I know it well. I know it well.
52, but yeah.
Oh, very cool. So when I was playing early Flight Simulator, this is a story that I think involves a couple of buddies of mine, Seth and Chris, Eddie, and Tyler. I think was there too. Tyler might be on the stream, not sure, but shout out to Tyler in Illinois. We had everybody over. You know, we were kids, so you still did the whole like sleepover thing, play video games till you all fell asleep and all that. But we had on my computer, we had Microsoft Flight Simulator running at the time. I had decided to take a transcontinental flight, so I took off from the east coast of the U.S. in what I hope was an ETOPS plane, and it was getting late, so I decided to set the autopilot, and we all kind of drifted off to sleep, and we woke back up. We go over and to the computer, and sure enough, we're passing right over London. And it's obviously totally irresponsible to sleep with your autopilot on. I know you would never do that. None of us would. But just for a kid, who loves this kind of thing, it was the coolest thing in the world to go, oh my God, the simulator's been running and the autopilot's been working, and we're in the UK. This is again, super geek points, but that's one of my fond memories from from just growing up and starting to realize the power of flight and simulation. So there's my little story.
Yeah, it definitely connects us all in very interesting ways.
And it's getting more connected now too. I mean, these dynamic multiplayer campaigns and the ability to do the voice chat and share all these things, share replays and edit videos together. There's just this sense that the skies are opening up for all of multiplayer and piloting, civil and military. X-Plane's got multiplayer capability. You've probably seen some of the ATC footage. Some of that stuff's getting a lot of traction on YouTube. The ATC fails and all that. So
yeah, I actually briefly trained as a controller in Seattle on VATSIM. We got qualified all the way up to the Seattle Tower, I think, and kind of enjoyed it, but didn't really get too much more into that. Especially because I played, well, a lot of people I think used Flight Sim 2004 for a long time as a client, and the default spawn location for that was 3-4 right at SeaTac. So I'd be controlling tower, and I have guys trying to land or take off, and then boop, a blackbird would spawn on the 3-4 right threshold, and I'd be like, Blackbird, say intentions, and he wouldn't respond. He'd just be there on the runway for like a few minutes, and then he would just go boop, he was gone, he would vanish. That's like, okay, whatever.
Tower that's classified.
That's classified.
That's like early ATC fails. I mean, that's the stuff that's like internet, like YouTube legend now.
So crazy.
I remember some of the early Microsoft Flight Simulators. Their default spawn location was Chicago Meigs Field. Remember that?
Yeah, Meigs. Yeah, that was, I think, FS98 headed at Meigs.
Yes, it was. Good times.
It's game time.
Jester's telling me it's game time, but I don't see anything. Is he hungry? Like, what is? I don't know.
Jester.
Oh, Jester's my Rio, and
270, 13 miles, Angels 3.
Oh, he typically says it's game time when you're within 10 nautical miles of the Bandit, and honestly, it's a beautiful day out here, and I don't see nobody.
Well, I think he's just opening up his turkey hoagie.
Oh, all the lettuce fell out.
It's game time as he opens it up and eats it.
That's just what he says when it's time for lunch. Oh, it's game time.
It's game time.
Macho Man's coming.
Macho Man. Sky's the limit.
Well, I remember seeing a photo of you. I think you were chowing down on something in your captain's gear, and sort of that glamorous life of the pilot.
Oh lordy. Oh yeah. So the newest thing on the plane now. So Delta recently started offering whole grain whole wheat Cheez-Its on the plane as snacks, and we're not quite sure why, but they seem to think that people really want to put, they basically store these tiny little snack-sized bags of Cheez-Its in these big plastic bags, and they can put a ton of these Cheez-It snack bags, and they put 2 or 3 of these giant bags of Cheez-Its on the plane. Of course, passengers, and it's every leg.
Whole grain Cheez-Its?
Yeah.
Nobody wants those.
Healthy Cheez-Its. They, if you're up at altitude, you really can't taste it between those Cheez-Its and typical Cheez-Its.
So that's like a point in their favor, I guess. No, you almost can't tell they're whole grain.
Well, yeah, for us as crews, we know the passengers are going to eat all the Cheez-Its. So we always ask our flight attendants, hey, can you bring up some Cheez-Its? So they hand us a big bag of Cheez-Its, and then for the whole day we're basically chowing down on Cheez-Its. And I know my girlfriend's listening to this stream right now. She's probably shaking her head right now. But yeah, it's that's the newest thing is bags of Cheez-Its on Delta. Just a heads up for anybody trying to fly on Delta.
So, so it's a little bit like junior wings. You want to be like a pilot. You're like, yeah, give me a bag of those cheeses. I know that's what they eat up on the flight deck.
Oh yeah, exactly. Come on up front. We'll hand you a pair of wings and a bag of Cheez-Its and say you're in.
It's pilot food, baby. Well, hey, is there anything? Oh, look at this up ahead of me. I think someone's doing a dump and burn on their Tomcat. That's not in the regs.
It's not an improved maneuver.
literally, you've torched your speed brake. Are you happy?
Maybe bent a bit of metal on that one.
You know what? The internet, it just never stops being fascinating. Multiplayer play. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, I was actually playing around with the A10. So I got everything installed on my computer at home, my rig. I was trying out the A10 and trying to figure, because I just got the X52 OTAS and I've been playing around with it. But it's very interesting to me how much my knowledge just from being on the Embraer actually translates over to the A10, at least from an airplane standpoint. Not in terms of any of the extra systems on board dealing with offensive or defensive capabilities, but just from the standpoint of like understanding AC power versus DC power in the electrical system, understanding generators, understanding bleeds, understanding the APU, understanding how to start an engine. It all translates over pretty well up until the point where I wasn't actually able to move my throttles out of the D10 to start the engine because I haven't set that up yet. Then
No, that's where they get you.
But you know, I definitely felt like I was like, all right, I could start up a jet in this without too much help in the checklist. All right, and then everything else though, I definitely need a checklist for those things. There's so much in each of these aircraft.
Especially the sort of like the clickable cockpits for the DCS aircraft. These are the most detailed I've ever seen, and they're amazing. If you like switchology, you have a great time with these aircraft, and I do. One of the things I always remember. One of my favorite shows as a kid was Airwolf, and and when you talk about switchology, it had they had every button. 9 out of 10 of them would shoot a missile. It was incredible. But I was a kid. I was really excited. I wanted to build just a control panel of some kind. I wanted switches, buttons I could press. And so my dad and mom and I went to Boeing Surplus, and we got all these different switches and encoder dials and all these other things. I don't remember whether we actually put this thing together, but just the idea that hey, I could actually build this kind of thing. And so I've loved these physical switches and controlling things and kind of having a bank of controls. It's been one of those things. It's just been kind of a continuing theme in my life. So piloting, it's kind of perfect for that.
Oh yeah, it for sure is. Yeah, I get my fix with all the switches and the buttons and knobs at work. So at home, I'm good with just my keyboard. X52.
Well, that's fair. I mean, and one of these days, I think, Alec, we're going to get you in the Rio seats. If I haven't scared you off yet by flying.
Quite the opposite.
And a mouse and a joystick with a few buttons is good enough. You can run a hand control unit, and then it's just eyeballs and good instincts. And I know you got those, so we're going to have to make that happen one of these days.
Indeed, we do.
Well, hey,
carrier landing.
Oh yeah, no, it's looking high and it's looking fast, and I'm scared, but
high and fast and stable approach.
Bad E bracket. Bolter. No, that
Better
was
safe than sorry.
That was bad. I wasn't in the E bracket or anything. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my secret weapon, which is the auto throttle setting, to do the next one and see if I can grab an actual wire this time.
I land on auto throttles all the time, so you're on.
You said that live on the air. Nobody's supposed to know that, Alec.
They're allowed to know that. We got very modern airplanes. It's great. So like in the jet that I operate now, for comparison, in these jets, right, you have to start the battery, then you have to start the inverter. You've got to basically for like an engine start, make sure the pumps are on, bleeds, everything else. And the plane that I fly now, basically as long as the APU is on, you just turn the knob to start, and it'll take care of all the buses, all the bleeds, all the fuel itself completely automatically over start sequence. It takes about a minute. So it's pretty amazing how easy it has become at this point, at least in the more modern aircraft.
I think that qualifies as auto magical.
Oh yeah, I would qualify it as that.
Well, now, when's your next gig? Are you getting on a shuttle to start your day here soon?
Yeah, I gotta change into my uniform here. About 10 minutes or so. I got to hop on the airport van.
Well, one thing.
Half hour.
Well, good. One thing, if you could, I would just love to hear your thoughts on kind of how the Museum of Flight has been, part of your life and sort of helped or inspired you.
Absolutely. I mean, so we moved up to Washington when I was 7 years old, and Museum of Flight from that point on has always played a very critical part. I mean, for probably 3 years in a row, I had birthday parties there. Like, I loved it there. I still remember I held them in, it was like a private room at the back of the cafeteria
Oh yeah.
in the museum. For
I
3 years
know
in a
the
row, we
one.
did that. And then my junior year of high school, they started up a program called at the time Washington Aerospace Scholars, and the name has since been changed to, I believe, the Western Aerospace Scholars, to incorporate states other than Washington. But it was a really cool program hosted by the museum that involved something like 3 or 4 months of online homework that dealt with mathematics, orbital mechanics, spacecraft design, all kinds of very interesting stuff that you just didn't tackle in your typical high school classes. And things that I
Orbital
found very
mechanics.
interesting. Oh yeah, we dealt with apogees and perigees and trying to calculate, gravitational attraction between two bodies, that kind of stuff.
Like most of us had to learn this with Kerbal Space Program. You actually learned this the right way.
Oh yeah, this was pre-KSP. But yeah, so actually when KSP came out, I was thrilled because I was like, this is what I was doing. But yeah, so I did WAS, 3 months or so of online homework. You have to pass all that. There are tests. After you pass, you are invited to participate in a week or 2 week long residency at the museum. You stayed in a hotel kind of close by, and it was you and dozens of other high school students, and it was basically a chance to kind of use what you learned to problem solve for a mission. In my case, it was a mission to Mars.
Ooh, wow.
And this was back in 2006, but it just kind of gave me an idea at a very young age. The problems and challenges just of trying to go to another planetary body, or just go into space even for an extended period of time. And that's the thing I don't think I would have ever gotten otherwise if I participated in that program if the museum had not put that on. So I definitely have the Museum of Flight to thank for that. It was truly probably the best. Your FPVs is right on the tower there, buddy. Oh god. There we go.
One wire.
Hey,
One wire.
nailed it. It was just a great chance to really experience all that, and ever since that point, I've tried to make it a point to really bring everybody that I know who's in town up to the museum to really experience everything that's got to offer. And now I'm participating on the future leaders team with you and Chelsea, Tommy, all those folks, and so far it's been a great time. Can't wait to keep up that work.
We've been very fortunate to have you on board. It's incredible to have a future leader who's an active pilot, and just a huge force for good in the aviation community. And one of these days I'm going to have to get some tips from you, because that carrier landing was just hot garbage. I'm telling you.
I specialize in approach and landing coaching, so anytime.
Fantastic. Well, Alec, I don't want to keep you from your job. I know you've got some people to get someplace, and I think you're seriously under your Cheez-It quotient for the day. So I'll let you get out to your shuttle and on your way. And I wish you safe travels and happy landings.
All right, Charles, I appreciate it, man. Have a good flight, safe, and we'll chat later.
Copy that. Take care.